This video, I'm going to go over how to solve equations using radicals. So we're actually going to use radicals, which we've talked about, to be able to solve equations, especially equations with higher powers on the x. So we're going to find the real solutions of the equation. So the idea with any time we're solving any type of equation, we always are trying to solve for some variable. In this case, we're trying to solve for x. When you're trying to solve for x, you want to get x all by itself. To get x all by itself, the things you want to do is work the order of operations backwards. So you want to get rid of the addition subtraction around the x first, then get rid of the multiplication division, then get rid of any exponents, then work inside any parentheses. So those are things you can remember, and that applies to all equations that we're trying to solve and how you go about doing that. So on this first one, I have 5x to the third power equals 1080. So the first thing I would like to do is, to get at this x by itself, I got a 5 with it and the third power. So I got to think about what would I like to get rid of first, the 5 or the third power. Well, if I'm working the order of operations backwards, I want to get rid of that 5 first. So if I'm multiplying by 5, the opposite of multiplying by 5 is dividing by 5. So I'm going to divide both sides by 5. That's going to give me x to the third equals, and if you do 1080 divided by 5, that is 216. So I have x to the third equals 216. The next thing I want to do is, to get x all by itself, I'd like to get rid of that power of 3. And the way this is going to work is very similar to how we've done things before. So if you had x squared equals 49, we always took the square root of it, because the power, we had a square there. To get rid of the square, take the square root. So take the square root of both sides. But this time, this isn't a square root. This is a square on it, sorry. So this was x squared, this is x to the third. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the third root. If I do it to one side, I got to do it to the other. So I have to take the third root of 216. Now what's going to happen on the left side is when you have the third root of something to the third power, those are inverse operations, so you're just left with x. On the right side, we're going to take the third root of 216. Now this is another case where it's nice to have that table of powers handy. So I talked about it in some of my other videos on basic evaluating these expressions. So here it is again. So what I'm asking here is, what to the third power is 216? So when you look at your table of powers, I'm asking what to the third power, so I'm going to go to the x to the third column. Don't care about any of the other ones right now. X to the third column. So what to the third power is 216. So if I go down the list, I get 216. So I'm asking what to the third power got me 216. So if you go all the way left, well, 6 to the third power is 216. If you're not sure, you can check on your calculator. 6 to the third power is 216. So what I get here is 6. Now the question becomes, is this going to be a positive, a negative answer, or leave it just as is? The rule of thumb there is you look at what is the root power, and we want to know if it's even or odd. If it's odd, we're basically going to leave things as is. So we're going to leave it alone. So if this was negative up here, I'm going to get a negative down there. If this is positive up here, I'm going to get a positive down there. If it's even, it gets a little bit more complicated. We want if it's a positive number there and it's an even power, you're going to get a positive negative answer. The only other answer you could possibly get if it's an even power is if the answer inside there is 0. So in most cases when we're solving, you get positive or negative. The only other thing we need to look out for is if you have a negative in there. Just like before, if we want the real solutions, if we had the square root of negative 49, that is not real. You're going to get imaginary numbers. So if it's an even power and a negative number inside, you're not going to be able to evaluate that. So we're going to end up with positive or negative. This was an odd power, so we're going to leave it alone. So positive 216, we get positive 6. You'll see again where this comes into play on our next example. So our next one, we have x to the fourth plus 24 equals 40. So the first thing we'd like to do is we'd like to get x all by itself. So you gotta think, do we get rid of the exponent of 4 or get rid of the 24? Well, I'm gonna get rid of the 24 first by subtracting 24 from both sides. So I get x to the 4th equals 16. Next thing I need to do is I would really like to get rid of that x to the 4th power. The opposite of taking something to the 4th power is taking something to the 4th root. So if I do it to one side, I got to do it to the other. When you have something to the 4th power and take the 4th root of it, those are inverse operations, so we're just going to be left with x there. On the right side, we have the 4th root of 16. So this is another case of using that table of powers. So we're asking, what to the 4th power is 16? Well, I go to my x to the 4th column, so I need to ask, what to the 4th power gets me 16? So here's 16. Go all the way over, it's 2. 2 to the 4th power is 16. But there is something special on this one. We took the 4th root there, which is an even root. And what we talked about was a positive and negative case. So what's going to happen is I'm going to get positive and negative 2. Another explanation of, well, why is this positive and negative and why is that just 6? Well, it has to do with, also in the basic cases, if we do the square root of 49. Now most people would say, so we're asking what to the 2nd power is 49. Most people immediately jump out and say it's 7, but no, positive and negative 7 work, because negative 7 squared is 49. Positive 7 squared is also 49. So when those even roots happen, you're going to get a positive or negative. When it's that odd root, you're only going to get what you had. So if this is positive 216, we're going to get a positive 6. If that was negative 216 there, we would have negative 6. So that was a video on solving equations using radicals.